Nice sentence. Good morning, JPEG. It's a very good morning indeed. The best mornings are the ones that start at 5:48 in the afternoon. You'll have to settle for Sora. It's alright. I can't believe they got a Disney character in there. They got a Disney character before Waluigi. I don't think I've streamed on Tuesdays before. I've never streamed on a Tuesday at this time. So who knows how this is going to go. Quit saying good morning. What is wrong with you guys? Yes, good morning. Good and a fine morning to you as well. Yo, Carrot. My man. Why is the chat in the overlay look faded, like it's running out of ink? It's never looked like that before. What in the world? JPEG. Is it just me, or does it look like that to you guys as well? I mean, you guys are watching this live, so you get to look at the actual chat. It's the morons who watch this on YouTube. They're going to be screwed over. You're on mobile and you can't tell. Well. Why can't you cater the podcast for you only? Oh, you like my drip? You like my baseball t-shirt hoodie combo? I'm a big fan of these things. I like hoodies and I like t-shirts, so it's like the perfect situation for me. I can't. What? You haven't been following me before? Bro, we commentated grand finals of the Low Ink together. Did that mean nothing to you? Didn't I have you on? Weren't you a guest on the Popcast at one point when we talked about college teams? Bruh. What do I gotta do to get you people to follow me? I have you guys on. I talk about you every week. Hype you up. Still, thank you for the raid, Shad_Dolphin. And hello, Hoenn. Hoenn. I have not. Carrot. I've not done that. And I haven't added that emote yet either. I don't do diddly poo. No, I've Carrot, I've learned better than to let you have my stuff. My electronic stuff. It's a recipe for disaster and tweets that get 100 likes. It's your job to be tech support? You just said you were teaching people. You a teacher or tech support? You can't be both. Is this a rant podcast episode? I don't know. How would you define a rant podcast episode? What would you define that as? Every day is a holiday, every meal is a feast. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping. Today is a day that has been given to me to do with as I will. When this day is gone, it'll be gone forever, leaving in its place something that I have traded for it. I want that thing that I traded for it to be gain, not loss, good, not evil, success, not failure, in order that I shall not regret the price that I paid to wake up today. May have sufficient wisdom and knowledge, or courage, may have sufficient wisdom and courage, that this shall be my record for the day. You thought it was Canon? No, I don't think Canon is here. I haven't seen Canon in chat yet. Everything except the Low Ink related ones. Thank you for the gift subbed, Carrot, to Low Bundulu. Minnow. It's a talky episode of the Popcast. I don't know. Maybe the rant ones are the ones where I'm angry, which get a lot of views but aren't my favorite ones to do. This one's more of a opinionated one. I wouldn't consider it a rant. But what you guys can call it whatever you want. As long as you watch, like, comment, and subscribe. Speaking of which, hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, or Spotify, while you're sending me screenshots of all of those stupid pictures you've made of me during your Jackbox gaming session, wondering where it is that you and Chris currently are right now, trying to figure out a unique and clever way to add the word spooky to your IGN, whatever it is that you're doing right now, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. Hey, it's Tuesday. Normally I do these things on Monday, while all you idiots in chat are in school. I just woke up yesterday and I was like, no, I'm not doing it today. I had everything written out that I wanted to talk about. I was prepared to go. I just wasn't mentally feeling like I should go. There's a lot of, I don't talk about this a lot, but there is like a lot of, I can't think of the word, like toxic masculinity. It's not something I really talk about a lot, but it is something I've probably bled into a lot in my life. And it's not until I'm getting older where I'm like, hey, maybe we should kind of pump the brakes more often and take some breaks when we feel like it. From 3rd grade to 12th grade, I did not miss a single day of school. I went every single day because I felt like I had to do that, right? I felt like I couldn't take a day off even if I wanted to. And when I was doing this podcast, I have a streak going. I have not missed a single week yet, and I've been pretty consistent. I'm like, there's been times where I've done a podcast episode where I had 103-degree fever when I was doing it. And it was like, this is, like, I feel like absolute crap right now, but I want to just push through it, tough it up, like tough it out, kind of, so to speak, and just get through it. And as I was waking up yesterday and as I'm getting older in my life, I'm starting to realize maybe I shouldn't be trying to do stuff like that. Maybe I should be able to say, okay, let's just not do this. Like, we can always wait and do this on a Tuesday at 6:00. So here we are. I don't expect this to be the norm, but I am going to start recognizing that I should be taking care of myself mentally and not trying to push myself so hard. And maybe that's a long-winded explanation as to why I didn't stream yesterday and I'm doing it right now. But we're Gucci right now, so let's get into it. But first off, news of other tournaments going on that may feature everyone, that may be of interest to everyone in chat, except for Chara, who is banned from all these tournaments because they're too good. Low Ink is October the 23rd and the 24th. Yes, Low Ink didn't get canceled. That was a joke perpetrated by the Wiggly Phantoms that the rest of us kind of fed into because it was pretty funny. No, that was just a joke. Link is not canceled. It was canceled last month, yes, but it's an actual thing. It's going to be back forever and ever. Amen. This month, October the 23rd and the 24th. Make sure you sign up now. If you want to try to get an exemption request in, make sure you do that sooner rather than later. You always want to give staff more time to look into your cases as opposed to less time. There are specific rules as to what needs to take place if you're going to enter an exemption request. Make sure you read that. Don't just go to help desk and be like, "Oh, am I banned from Low Ink?" Or someone's gonna be like, You about to beef? You asked that question one more time. So, October 23rd, 24th. Sign up now. But I know all of you are going to wait till the last minute. LSL 16 is not going to take place this month, but is going to take place the month after that, November the 6th, which I believe is a Saturday, unless they've already been kicked off to another Sunday. LSL's been running pretty consistently on Saturdays. There was a good chunk of time where they were like always on. Like they would announce that they're doing a tournament on a Saturday, and then something crazy would happen, and they'd be like, nope. Or like another tournament would pop off and like kick them down to a Sunday or something. So LSL's been getting a lot of momentum here on these Saturdays, so it's good to see them things running kind of consistently and smoothly for that, even though they are not participating in October. Not sure why. Maybe there's just a lot of events going on in October that I'm not paying attention to myself. Today, obviously, we're going to be recapping the Minnow Cup Splat Zone Edition tournament that happened 3 days ago. Oops. It's still fresh in y'all's mind, though. You guys are still excited about it. You love you some Minnow Cup, and we're going to be talking about the tournament that happened on Saturday, as well as some of the other events that were announced by Nintendo and a few other tournaments that happened in the last week leading up to where we are today. We're going to recap all of that stuff. But first, we've been talking a lot for a while now about how we need to implement a community infrastructure now instead of waiting until Splatoon 3 comes out. There is this narrative going around that when Splatoon 3 becomes a thing and it comes out and everybody gets it, that all of a sudden this community is just going to explode overnight and become the esport that we all are kind of hoping that it will become. Yeah, yes and no. I mean, we should be expecting a lot of new people to pick up Splatoon when Splatoon 3 comes out. That's good for the casual big fan base of Splatoon, which makes up 99% of this community. Problem is, though, transitioning those brand new players to being something that's going to be consistently playing in tournaments and not getting, like, playing in low ink and actually being competitive and not getting absolutely destroyed in low ink, it's going to take some time. I picked up the game, my wife and I bought a Switch off of Target, I want to say in 2017. I don't know the exact date, but we didn't get into actual, like, Discord side of Splatoon, I'd want to say for the first 8 months to a year before we even got into like Discord and I found a casual clan Sploot Troops. And then after that, it was probably Carrot, another 5 months after that until Karen and I actually formed a competitive team, Destiny Troops. And then another 3 years to get Destiny Troops to the point to where it is right now. So you're talking about brand new casuals coming into the game. It's going to take them a while to get into A, being into the competitive side of the scene, and B, being somewhat decent enough to where they can at least defend themselves against mid-level teams to the higher end of lower level teams in this scene. So it's, a lot of new blood's going to be coming in Splatoon 3, but it's not going to be something that magically changes everything overnight. We need to fix everything that is wrong with this scene now, before Splatoon 3 comes here. There's been a lot of issues that have been kind of pointed out over the last couple of months. Obviously, August was when we had a lot of people coming out and speaking out about how women and non-binary were being harassed, specifically in the Plus servers, but pretty much anywhere across the entire community. A lot of people were coming out and speaking out about their experiences, and it was eye-opening for a lot of people. and not eye-open. And for some people, it was like, yeah, this isn't eye-opening at all. This has been going on for a long time. I'm glad we're finally talking about it. Or at least I'm glad people are finally starting to listen because we've been talking about it for a while. Obviously, last month, Riptide was awesome. The week leading up to Riptide was horrible, but the Riptide itself seemed to be fine. I don't think there's been any like after effects from Riptide as far as COVID cases are concerned that have been super serious. I guess I know personally of 3 cases from the Splatoon side of Riptide, and I don't know what I've seen. Some of them say, hey, I can come out of quarantine right now, and I don't know like if there's been anything more than that, or if anybody's like in serious condition or anything like that. So if anything like that, as JPEG says, they haven't seen anything bad either. So there you go. That's all I need to know. Regardless, I feel like we escaped Riptide. we got kind of lucky to where things are right now, but still a positive thing. And we are just coming off the heels of the biggest grassroots tournament ever in the history of competitive Splatoon. If you don't include Ludi, which is more of a league than a tournament, or any of the Nintendo stuff, because that's not grassroots. Regardless, Super Jump revitalized the entire community. People came back. All those people that were like, ooh, I'll be back when Splatoon 3 comes out. And all of a sudden we're like, hey, Super Jump. Hey, let's get me 3 players. Let's go and play in this. Now, one thing I do want to point out. We've always kind of called Ludi the team killer, right? Well, as we're kind of getting on into this, getting more experience as a community in the competitive scene, I think we're starting to realize Ludi isn't really a team killer. There isn't such a thing as a team killer. It's just certain events that builds teams and builds excitement. And then when those events are over, those teams and excitement kind of dissipates a little bit until the next thing comes. A lot of people were pointing out, hey, a lot of teams are disbanding. Why last week? Why were they disbanding? Super Jump's over. Now, some of those teams that disbanded were notable teams that were well into establishment before Super Jump became an actual thing. But what we see is Ludi gets announced. Everyone gets excited, forms a team, Ludi ends, they fall apart. Triple G gets announced. Form a team, it ends, teams fall apart. Same thing with Super Jump. So I think we're starting to learn is, yeah, like these players are starting to disband and these teams are like disbanding, but that's not always a bad thing. What we see is these players are still hanging around. They're either becoming TOs, which we need more quality TOs. We see them go into commentary. We see them go into content creation, which is driving more views and more conversation about competitive Splatoon. And we see them form new teams with other players that have disbanded as well. So, you do get some of those people that just disappear off the face of the earth, and so be it. That you're going to get that anywhere, and eventually people are going to get tired of the game and leave it. Maybe that'll happen to me someday. Maybe tomorrow, but we're at least talking about Splatoon today, so we'll stick with it. But my point being, I don't see it as a big deal that people were disbanding after Super Jump. I just see it as, well, this is the trend now. If you've been paying attention to competitive Splatoon for a while now, we're starting to see this as being a trend. But what we learned through Super Jump is that Splatoon 2 isn't done yet. We thought it was. We were thinking, okay, well, Splatoon 3 is announced. Everyone's just going to wait for that to come out, and then things are going to pick up. No, we found out through Super Jump that we haven't even scratched the surface of what competitive Splatoon 2 looks like. If we are just now hitting a record number of teams, the prize pool wasn't a record number, but it was still crazy high. The amount of people watching it, now Squid House blew everything out of the water, but for a non-Squid House tournament, just shy of 800 people watching it live. I don't know how many total views off the top of my head. Still a lot of views. What we're realizing is We've set new records with Super Jump for competitive Splatoon 2, and we're not even done yet. Could you imagine what the future is going to hold now with this game? Like this game that's been dead, this game that has been labeled dead like 4 or 5 times now is still starting to set new records with these massive tournaments that we're getting. Now, while we are building a lot of momentum going into Splatoon 3, there's still a couple of things that need to get addressed and fixed and kind of ironed out. This is the infrastructure I've been talking about, things we need to build in this community so that when Splatoon 3 hits, we're still riding this momentum and still climbing up in the right direction, that we can just take off when Splatoon 3 gets here instead of just being flat plateau and then have Splatoon 3 be the jolt of life that picks everything back up. No. We're building everything right now. But what specifically needs to be fixed? I got 3 things for you. And there's probably a whole lot more than 3 things, but I like these episodes to only go about an hour. So we're going to limit it to just one of the 3 major things. And a lot of this is going to be the same stuff we've been talking about for a while. But number 1, we need to clean up the bullcrap. There's a lot of it. As we found out over the last couple of months, probably longer than that, there is just a lot of jackasses running around that are damaging the soul of this community and are driving people away. You see it every single time. Twit longer after twit longer after twit longer has to come out because somebody's being a jackass. And you'll see people say, I'm done with this community and I'm never coming back. Okay, but how do we get rid of all of these people? We had the right kind of, or not get rid, but how do we get everybody on the same page as far as how we should be treating each other in this community and how we should be acting if we're going to be interacting with each other? Splat safety was it. And of course, it was met with opposition initially by anybody that was under the age of 18. I think every single adult that functions in the real world understood what splat safety was and appreciated it. And it was doing a good job for the most part. The problem right now is, though, we haven't seen splat safety around in a while. I had a Kraken on as the spokesperson for splat safety back in June, back when in-game TV pretty much failed in their response to the slimy situation. But since then, we haven't really heard much about splat safety. And don't quote me on this, but I think they are on some sort of hiatus. The last tweet that I've seen from them was talking about how they needed more people to fill out their organization. So I don't know if they just have enough staff to where they can go forward with what they have been doing in the past. But splat safety is dangerously important because without splat safety, which was basically the overarching umbrella, right? Like all the orgs were coming under this one umbrella that splat safety had, and it made things a lot easier and it made things a lot more uniform to where everybody was in agreement. All right, this player should be gone for this amount of time because they broke this rule that was clearly spelled out. We didn't just make up this punishment for this specific player. We spelled it out ahead of time and they broke this rule. Here's the punishment. And all the tournaments and organizations were on with that, except for in-game TV. Then, the problem with that, though, is when splat safety doesn't exist, then you got some players that are like half banned from that tournament and not banned at all from this other tournament, and like secretly banned from this tournament and like publicly banned from that other tournament. It creates a lot of confusion and messiness and a lot of people not being on the same page and gotten some people in trouble with how they handled things. There's really 2 types of ways to handle banning somebody. First off, the more, as we found out, probably the wrong way to go about doing it was publicly announcing that you are banning somebody. Doing it very quickly. We found public backlash. has kind of driven some organizations to make statements very quickly without truly looking into everything. It's it's kind of like Gaston in Beauty of the Beast when he's like trying to rally the whole town together to like go after the beast, right? To just like publicly go after them. Through the mist, through the woods, only looked at half the evidence and came to the decision right away. Lifetime ban, now you're gone and you're never coming back, and we hope all the other orgs do the same. Like, what? No. No, we're not. I don't know about that. Of course, the opposite way of doing it publicly is to do things more privately, where you still get that backlash, but it's at least not all over Twitter. It's just in your DM, so it feels more personal, which is just a lovelier way to go through everything. Not going to name names or any kind of anything involved with specific situations, but I will say during Super Jump, we had to have conversations as a staff to figure out the legality. Is that the correct term? The legalness of a few individual players to, as far as if they should be allowed in Super Jump or not. And that led to a lot of meetings, a lot of time where we had to dig up evidence, both against like certain victims and the players involved and the accused. There's a lot of time that needs to be spent on each individual case, because when you make a ruling, you want to make sure you make it right. And that takes a lot of time to get to that point. That's why whenever like a Twitlonger drops, right? We don't see when splat safety was a thing. They didn't make an immediate statement, even though everybody was like, at splat safety, where are you guys at? How can you guys let this go on? Where is your statement? Well, splat safety sees that, obviously, but they got to follow through their due process, right? Like you can't just take Twitlongers at face value. You have to do a little bit more digging and investigating. Sometimes screenshots of DMs can be fabricated. I didn't know this was a thing, but that is an actual thing. I have a friend of mine who had a conversation completely fabricated in a screenshot to make it seem like one person was saying something that wasn't about another person, that wasn't even close to being true. Like Twitlong, I'm not saying like don't believe Twitlongers automatically, but as you're going to hand out punishment, you have to do stricter research other than just, well, I read this document, here's what's going to happen. No, you got to talk to everybody involved and get a clear picture of what happened before you pass judgment on somebody. That's why splat safety is such an awesome thing, because TOs don't want to have to deal with that on top of making production, on top of promoting your tournament, on top of jackasses being on Twitter, like financial analysts telling us how we're supposed to be distributing our prize money. So that's kind of the and it's not a burden. If you want to be a TO in this community, you have to do that. Like I've said, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, because somebody else will do the job for you. It's not always fun, but if we're not all on the same page, if this org is letting this player in and that one isn't, and this one's banned for like half a month and the other one's just a slap on the wrist warning, it's not consistent. And that's what splat safety provided, consistency. So we need to get splat safety back. That's step number one. Number two, and I feel like I've said this every single episode of the Popcast, so this isn't anything new. Mid-level sucks, bro. Mid-level needs a lot of help. Now, it was about a year ago that I was on Top Speed Up with K-Bot, Matt, and Dura talking about a lack of mid-level back then. Mid-level has at least gotten some attention this time around, because there is this thing called +3, which if you've listened to a lot of episodes of the Popcast, which I know you have, +3 is something I've traditionally made fun of for being bad in a sense. Now, not bad as far as skill level, just bad as far as organization is concerned. I will say this, though. +3 is a good idea, and I can appreciate the fact that +3 will eventually become something good for the scene. The best comparison I could have for it right now is +3 is kind of like that after-school club that you have that is just formed, right? Like if you watch any teen anime, they're always forming a brand new club and they don't have many members and there's like no teacher involvement at all. That's pretty much what's going on here. It's a brand new club, just got formed, and there's like a teacher there, but the teacher's like, this is going to be good for you students to figure out how to run this club on your own, and I'm just going to sit here and watch. And you got them all together and they're just like, let's do splat zones only, and let's not VC with each other, and every 3 months, let's just kick out like half of our player base and see. And it's like, okay, the ideas here are at least ideas. I don't know if they're actually benefiting anyone at this point. But you could see that eventually +3 is going to become something that is going to be beneficial for mid-level. And maybe it's getting closer to there than the last time that I made fun of +3, which was about like a week ago. But still, I can appreciate +3 now that I spend more time thinking about it, as opposed to when it wasn't there. Regardless of that, yes, the players have something. Mid-level players have something. What about mid-level teams? Because those things are falling apart so quickly, and it's becoming exponentially more quick. I'm making up words today. Look at the teams that have won low ink this year alone. We've had 8 low inks this year. 9 champions. The March incident producing 2 champions, arguably 3 somehow. So 9 teams have won low ink this year, 2021. Of those 9 teams, only 3 remain. Only 3. Red Sun, Ink Reapers, and Deep Fried... excuse me. The Deep Fried Octolings, who appear to be the most strong team of all of them moving forward. The Deep Fried Octolings won low ink and said, okay, let's put our foot on the gas and see how far we can drive this thing. And they've been improving very rapidly since low ink. But Popgun, what about Rising Matrix? Didn't they disband like 6 times already? I know they still show up in tournaments, but I feel like they've officially disbanded and they're more of a pickup. What about Night Surfing? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I haven't seen them play in tournaments recently. I looked at their Twitter. Their Twitter doesn't say they're disbanded, but you look at the bio of every player that's followed by the Night Surfing Twitter, and only one of them claims Night Surfing in their bio. So, don't know what's up with that. But the teams that have won the last 2 low inks, the August and July champions, they're both disbanded already. My goodness. It's become a point now where you win low ink, and I do my Popcast episode recapping low ink, which are always the most popular episodes of the Popcast that I do for good reason. Low ink is awesome. And no matter which one, this dates all the way back to the first low ink I covered. People were in chat that won that tournament that month, and we're saying, this is just the beginning of us. We're going to be moving way forward than this. You're not going to remember us for winning low ink. You're going to remember us for being one of the strongest teams ever. And it's like, okay, but I realize something that you don't, and this isn't really your fault. But once you win low ink, there's nothing for you to do right now, which kind of sucks. You win low ink, and then you're like, okay, we made Hammerhead in SOS because there was a buy in our group, so we got a free win. And looks like Summit took an upset in Swiss, so now they're in Hammerhead, and we played them round 1. And hey, maybe we can take a game off of Summit. That's your life after being a low ink champion. It's like it's like graduating from high school and then like college sucked, or like you realize you're not the big man on campus anymore. And it's just like, man, I wish I could go back to high school. This is kind of rough. Another thing I want to point out, and this was this made its rounds around Twitter recently because there's a new tournament that came out and said that they're doing Div 7 and below. And to me, I'm like, what the hell is Div 7 and below? Ludi Divs came out back in April. Div 8 isn't low level. Div 8 is just like where we put teams that we know literally nothing about. Div 8 is like the equivalent of doing your placements in solo queue. Like Div 8 is where you play your 10 solo queue games and then you get a score and then we know what div you actually should be. Div 7, are any of those teams legit Div 7 anymore? I mean, that was April. That was what, 6 months ago? Like, none of those teams, they either don't exist anymore or they've grown to the point to where they're too good to be considered Div 7 because that was half a year ago. So whatever Div 7 and below is, I have no idea, but it's not my tournament, so it's not my problem. But it does kind of point out another situation. Well, I got placed in Div 4. Low Ink and Minnow Cup are Div 5 and below, but I feel like I got seeded incorrectly in Ludi. But I can't go back and play in Low Ink or Minnow Cup because I'm Div 4 and too high of a div. So I'm kind of stuck in no man's land here where I'm seen as too good for Low Ink, but I'm still losing to Low Ink teams. That I get. But I wouldn't care about that in the slightest if only there was something for teams that was like in the Div 4 to Div 3 range, which we all thought was going to come at some point and just flat out hasn't come yet. I will say this lack of tournaments for mid-level. Obviously, I work for IPL, and obviously this is not an IPL podcast. This is the Pop Gun podcast. I will say this, though. That is something IPL is aware of. And I'll just leave it at that. But I will admit, I am legitimately surprised that other organizations and tournaments haven't at least attempted something specifically for mid-level. Midpoint tried some stuff before, and, well, they tried some stuff and haven't tried anything since. But there's been no other, like, attempts to try to do something for mid-level. And if there was, then okay, yeah, maybe you got overseeded into Div 4. Who cares? There's still plenty of tournaments for you to play in. But because we don't have that, yes, it does feel kind of bad that if you got put in Div 4 and you did bad, that we haven't let people back down yet. But that's kind of why I'm telling you, hey, put in exemption requests, because there is a point where divs lose complete control. If you do a Low Ink in April and May, possibly June of this year, and you say Div 5 is the line, it makes more sense because divs are so fresh. But again, I've said this a lot. You have to have a line somewhere. If you're going to run a skill cap tournament, the cap has to be clearly defined. You can't have a line that's wavy and be like, oh, well, you specifically, you're under the line at this point, but this other player, we're going to say that you're over it at that point, because then your ruling of who gets to play and who doesn't becomes inconsistent, and then people go on Twitter and be like, well, they let that guy in, and that guy's better than me, and they kicked me out, and it's all this stuff, and it's understandable, but a line has to be somewhere. But I think as we're getting closer, we're now, again, 6 months out from Ludi, that line becomes a little bit iffy. And since there is no mid-level tournament to push people out to, if they can't get back in, there's not really a whole lot for them to do right now. So it's understandable. Teams that have disbanded after winning Low Ink, I'm not making fun of them. I'm saying I understand, because I'm right there with you. Super Jump was fun for my team. SOS is fun for my team when we have enough players to do it. Other than that, there's not a whole lot that I would consider fun, specifically for my team. Maybe I'm wrong. But hey, I know a lot of other teams that are in that situation right now. So mid-level, once again, needs something. And again, not going to break any news, but I'll tell you that IPL is aware of that. The third thing that needs to happen, building this scene up to get to the point to where we all want it to be, orgs need to get bigger. Tourneys need to invest in each other. We don't need more tournaments. I don't think we need more tournaments. I think we've reached the point to where we got a healthy number of tournaments that we have in like the rotation of this scene. We could use more mid-level stuff, as I've indicated, but everything else seems fine. I don't think we need to add more tournaments, but instead reinvest in the tournaments that we already have. Dapple Productions has made note of this. They've went out and they've added Squid Junction and Paddling Pool to their rotation of tournaments that they got, beefing up themselves. Those tournaments were streaming on their own Twitch channels, which weren't streaming enough to get affiliate, which weren't streaming enough to where people would subscribe or cheer with bits. But you put that on one specific channel with Dapple Productions, all of a sudden, you're going to get more views on one specific channel, which eventually leads to more revenue, which eventually leads to a stronger organization that is investing directly into its tournaments. IPL recognized this, as you can tell. Where did the base money for Super Jump come from? Directly from revenue generated from donations, ad revenue, subscriptions, and bits from Twitch. Now, where did the other 2,500 come from? Strictly donations. But if IPL didn't have such a successful Twitch page, there would not have been a Super Jump to begin with. And that's where it kind of comes from. All these channels, all these tournaments that are just standing alone, yeah, there might be providing something to the community as far as like giving teams things to play in, but they're not helping everything become the next esport that we want this to be. Organizations need to get better. And it's not just IPL. Do I want IPL to dominate this entire scene? Yeah, that'd be awesome. Do we need Dapple Productions to get bigger as well because they have such a strong, they have a strong share of the European market? Yes. Do we need Deep Sea Solutions to kind of glow up? And they seem to be taking steps to do that. Yes. Do we need these like standalone tournaments to do something other than just stand by themselves? In my opinion, yes, we do. And I think a lot of people are starting to recognize that right now. Certainly are at IPL. Again, not breaking any news here. We're probably going to have Hohen on the next episode of the Popcast. Maybe Hohen can break some news if they want to piss off everybody else that has been working hard behind the scenes. But I'll say this. If we want this scene to take the next step, we need a stronger presence on Twitch. We need something that people can watch consistently. We need to become partnered with Twitch. We need more content that spreads over into YouTube channels. We need all of that stuff. And it only happens if the tournaments we have right now come together instead of us continually to add more and more standalone single tournaments that cater to Div 7 and below or whatever. And then just clutter up all of the weekends with a wide variety of tournaments that people are too confused about what they should be playing and whatnot. Regardless, again, Super Jump proved one thing. We are moving in the right direction. We don't even know how far we can push Splatoon 2 yet. It's not dead. It's thriving better than it ever has. And this is the moment to strike. This is the moment to where we can start fixing all these issues. Reinvest in the splat safety. Reinvest in mid-level, the middle class. Wow, I sound like a politician now. And reinvest in the tournaments we already have. We build those three things up. Boy, we gonna be cookies and juice by the time Splatoon 3 comes out. And we have something to welcome the casuals with. Speaking of tournaments, things going on, things that have happened this past week. It is time for the weekly recap. And Nintendo announced a invitational that is going to take place for the they say some of the top teams from the 2021 ladder tournaments. What's okay? What does that mean exactly? I have no idea, and apparently nobody else does either, including some of the potential teams that you would assume would play in it. It can't be the top 4 it can't be the 4 teams that won each tournament, because one of them cheated. And it can't be any of the teams that were actually going to win some prizes, because as we found out last week, a lot of those teams haven't gotten their prizes at all. Now, some of them have. I think I saw some people come out like later in that week and be like, hey, I finally got this email saying that I was going to get that backpack from Nintendo that they said they were going to give me like a couple of months ago. So this tournament came out of nowhere, and it left more people confused than excited, which is a really weird thing. And it's frustrating, man. Like, all those things I just talked about in the last segment of infrastructure, Nintendo could just flat out blow all that out of the water day one if they actually had an idea of what they were doing. Like, seriously, I don't know whoever actually runs these tournaments for Nintendo, and it's not our guys. Like, our guys are just like given, like, told what to do. Like, our guys being our people from our community that you see in the help desk running the tournament. Like, they're just kind of told what to do. They're not the ones actually calling the shots. Whoever is, man, it's honestly, if Nintendo just hired K-Bot and said, you are the czar of our competitive Splatoon division, man, this place would go nuts right away. Like, they have all the necessary resources to make this an esport, and instead we're doing invitational tournaments for the champions of Turf War and not telling any of the champions that they are going to be involved in it or not. They're going to find out on Twitter. Okay. Bad Ideas Only took place last Wednesday in lieu of SOS that was taking its break. It usually takes 1 week off, is SOS, and Bad Idea filling that void, this time going with a tournament that was aimed with no shooters. No shooters also includes no semi-automatic weapons, so no H3s or no squeezers. The blasters were allowed. The team that won it, Bad Ideas Only, was Maya, MYEH, made of Opie, Eris, Krim, and Pika. Second place went to A2P, Salt to Pepper, and third place went to Summit. Fourth went to Resilience. Hey, I see you, Resilience. Good to see you guys back, being as resilient as you've always been. 32 teams in total played in this tournament, and there were multiple brackets after the Swiss stage, I believe. Beta bracket went to Fantasy, Gamma bracket went to Illumini, and Delta went to BLT. I'll point something out. I saw some people tweeting about this tournament and saying that they won it. If you guys win, and I've seen people do this in low ink too, if you win like Gamma or Beta, are you allowed to tweet out that you won low ink? Or do you need to specify you won Beta? Because I've saw people tweeting out, we won Bad Ideas Only. And it's like, wait, no, you didn't. You won like Gamma or Delta or something like that. Not that discredit winning a bracket. That's a good accomplishment for any team winning a bracket. But can you say you flat out won a tournament? Yeah, someone said they won Super Jump just because they won their bracket. I don't think you won all of Super Jump, or at least that's what it implies. Maybe that's just the language issue that I'm not really picking up on. Paddling Pool 131. Oh my goodness. The team that won this one, I'm not going to sound like an old man here, but I don't have the mature filter on, or the mature tag on to this stream, so I can't say this team's name. I'll just call them Poop and Poop, is what we're going to go with there. I don't even think I'm allowed to say that without the mature. Twitch is weird. Regardless, that team won. Paddling Pool 131. Alliance Winex took second place, and Gucci Purse taking third. Normally, I like to read off the players on the team that actually won this tournament, but they didn't. When they checked in, normally they put down their roster of their team too on Discord. They didn't put in their rosters this time, so I have no idea who any of these players are that won this tournament, so I'm just going to read off the team names, and we can go with that. Regardless, congratulations to those teams for winning Paddling Pool 131. The Cardinals unfortunately destroyed the Rams 37-20. Kansas City lights up the Eagles 42-30. Oh, that was a heartbreaker seeing the Rams get crushed like that. And that was your weekly recap, sponsored by whatever jackass picked this month's maps for the Clam Blitz solo rotation. Hey, do you hate solo queue Clam Blitz? Well, we have the right thing for you. The map sucks so much that you have a legit excuse not to do it at all. Wow. Thank you for sponsoring today's episode, the weekly recap. It was a very quick edition of the weekly recap. That's what happens when there's no SOS. Luckily, there's one tomorrow. All right. Let's go to Minnow Cup, and then let's go home. Minnow Cup. Minnow Cup. With these tournaments, I like to kind of look at the brackets as a whole, so I'll start doing more of the Battlefy thing there. That's not right. What was that? Do I have the wrong screen set up to this? That was my... Yo, what? That has never been a thing. Well, maybe we won't do this. Okay, I'll have to figure that out later. I think there was an update on OBS or something, because that was the wrong... Like, I have two monitors up here, but it's usually attached to that monitor when I go to that screen, but it immediately went to this. So I'm not going to figure that out live. We'll just talk. That's what you guys are doing anyways. How many people on YouTube, if you just listen, or I guess people watching the VOD back on Twitch, if you just listen to the Popcast, leave like a comment below to say, hey, I just listened. Like sometimes I will listen to things on YouTube, like a video on YouTube. I'll just put it in my pocket while I'm walking around the neighborhood and just listen to it. I wonder if people just listen to the Popcast. But I feel like most people watch because you like seeing my pretty face. And can't blame you. Minnow Cup took place on Saturday. Splat zones only. Div 5 and below. 42 teams signed up for this one. 39 played. That means 3 did not check in for whatever reason. Usually they do the 2 groups thing to like 2 groups of Swiss so that they can avoid the Battlefy issue of forcing you to do a set amount of rounds based off of how many teams play in your tournament, which is why this is your first time, if you're ever wondering why does Loink does 2 groups of Swiss, it's because we don't want to do 2 groups for Swiss. It's because we don't want to be forced to play 7 rounds of Swiss on Saturday. It's a little too much Splatoon. If we could find a way to make those rounds go quicker, maybe 7 would be awesome. But the fact is, 35 minutes a round, 7 rounds, that's too long of a day. But this time around, only 1 group. So they did actually do 6 rounds of Swiss as opposed to the 5 that they did. Now, the top cut was significantly slimmed out. There was only a top 8 and it was best of 3 up to grand finals. So that the top 8 was a little bit shorter to make up for that extra round. So I kind of like that. Everybody plays more tournaments, and the top teams play quicker tournament. I like tournaments that cater to the entire group of teams as a whole, as opposed to just one, just like the top portion of the team. So more matches for everybody, I think, is a good idea. And you still get some quality matches here in Top Cut as well. The wifey said this was the smoothest Minnow Cup ever. After she was done with that one, I was like, oh, okay. They just had a good amount of staff. Stream went well. Commentators seem to be fine. I haven't looked in depth in the commentators. It's not really my place to look in depth into commentators. But the stream quality, I mean, I'll give you guys one guess as to who was involved in the stream to make the stream quality glow up. It's the same person who gets, when she gets her hands on everything in the scene, on anything in the scene, all of a sudden it just becomes gold overnight. It's not even fair. And of course, it's Jub. And honestly, there's a kind of a side point, kind of not. All of the tournament streams that we've been seeing lately, Little Squid League, Minnow Cup, obviously, because those are both Jubs doing, and all the stuff with IPL. I mean, the production team we have at IPL is crazy, and those guys are constant. There's probably a production meeting going on right now. I know there was one when I was right before I went live. Basically, the overlays in the streams themselves of pretty much every tournament we have in the scene has improved dramatically. And personal point, I feel like the commentary across the board hasn't improved nearly as enough as the production value has for a lot of these tournaments. I've been thinking about doing an intro guide to commentary, just because some of this commentary I'm not pointing out Minnow Cup, I'm just talking about in general. A lot of commentary, I think, is just not good enough or as good as it should be. So I think just by saying this out loud, I'll actually get motivated and make that video. But if our commentary can improve to match the production quality of all of these streams, I think that's going to help drive up more views as well. And don't name names specifically, because I'm pretty bad at commentary sometimes myself. But there's a lot of, if the commentary across the board could get a lot better, I think we'd be doing pretty good in this scene. The tournament itself, looking at some matches of interest, because there were a lot of teams that did some glowy up kind of things here. First off, Overlook got a 2-1 win over Power Inc. Power Inc. being an alpha bracket team, going down to an Overlook team that went 1-5 back in July. Now, if you remember, this Overlook team in Battlefy, their L in look was italicized or whatever, and it made their whole name look jank. They fixed that. It's now just normal L, and they haven't been taking L's since they fixed their L. Getting a nice win over Power Inc. here. And they got a win over Ocean 7 as well. The Overlook, to their credit, did go 2-4 in this tournament, but when your 2 wins are against Power Inc. and Ocean 7, those are pretty good wins to have if you're only going to get 2. So Overlook going into the right direction for sure, and getting that win against Power Inc. is a good step in the right direction for them. Ink Bashers got a 2-1 win over BLT, the Bad Luck Trout. Excuse me. I believe BLT did finish tryouts and added a new player. I believe Booze is a new player. Also, Jim, Jem, was on their roster for this tournament as well. I don't know if that's a new addition or is just a sub for this or whatever, or if they were already on the team and I didn't realize it. But still, the BLT brand is an alpha bracket team, and this seems like an even mashup because the Ink Bashers have always kind of flirted with the idea of making alpha bracket. And they are always flirting with the idea of winning Little Squid League. So getting a win over BLT here, although a bit of a revamped roster, maybe BLT spending a little bit more time trying to find their synergy with their new roster. Still a good win for Ink Bashers. The Shining Storm got a 2-1 win over Sirius. Of course, we're pointing this out because this was the only team to beat Sirius. Seriously. This happened in Swiss, and it wasn't... We're going to be talking about Sirius, obviously, because they won this whole tournament. And if you just looked at Battlefy, it would look like, wow, Sirius kind of steamrolled this entire tournament. Not the case. It wasn't an easy tournament at all for them. Shining Storm being a traditional alpha bracket team, when we see them in low ink, which isn't always the case, getting a nice win here against the team that ended up winning the whole tournament. It is also worth pointing out, this is Splat Zones only, yes, but if there's one mode that's going to be, if there's one Minnow Cup where like you can look at the results and be like, okay, there's something here, in my opinion, it's going to be Splat Zones. So keep that in the back of your mind. It's like, well, they didn't play the other modes, but still quality wins nonetheless if you're beating teams best of threes on Splat Zones. Irida, not iRide, because I listened to the Moray Tavern podcast when this team was on, and it's pronounced Irida, even though it looks like it's iRide, IRIDE. Got a 2-1 win over BitClam, and we haven't seen Irida in a long time, but they're a very old team. They're just kind of another one of those, they'll pop up every now and then just to remind you that they're here, and then ride off into the sunset only to come back a few months later. But they made their presence known here, beating BitClam, a top cut LSL team last month. And this was actually on stream. It was really close. Came down to a game 3, just worked into Irida's favor. So a nice win for Irida right there over BitClam. This one I wrote in really small because I saw it on stream after I finished all of my notes. So I tried to squeeze it in here and it made sense. Dogcat Hype got a 2-1 win over El Gato. This one was on stream as well. Notable players on Dogcat Hype, Ahmed and Airsign. And this one went to a game 3 as well, ultimately going into the favor of Dogcat Hype. Don't know if that's a pickup or just an actual team going forward. And not to throw sorry to the other 2 members of Dogcat Hype that I didn't mention, but I am at least aware of the other 2. One of them's in chat right now. You were just a sub. It is a pickup. Well, nice win for pickup over an LSL champion who I saw they recently just added Super Fern to their roster today. I mean, I don't think we're going to see Fern in these low-level tournaments, but still, Legato, a good team in their own right, and a nice win for Dogcat Hype. Possibly the best match of the entire tournament, and one maybe nobody really saw. Access Denied getting a 3-2 win over Hydra, and this was the 3rd place match. And I believe as Saucy Boy kind of mentioned this yesterday. Yes, that the bronze medal match, that Access Denied actually went down 2-0 and then pulled off a reverse sweep, which is good to see. You like to see teams fight in that bronze medal match. Sometimes you just see teams drop. Sometimes you just see teams, we made 3rd place, who cares? It means something to Access Denied. You like to see that. Even when they're down 2-0, found the ways to turn it around, get a reverse sweep, and got a bronze medal. I like that. I like that kind of fight in a match that seemingly doesn't mean anything. And that's a good loss for Hydra as well. Hydra being a team, actually, we're going to talk about Hydra right now because we're switching over to teams who I think stock really improved over this tournament for the results they got in this one. And team number 1 has to be Hydra. These guys went 5-1 in Swiss, knocking off Shining Storm and Top Cut before losing the leg and obviously the Access Denied, like I just talked about in the 3rd place match. But Hydra went 3-3 in the July lowing, kind of like Irida. Hey, we still exist. Bye. See you in like 3 months. Well, they really popped off in this tournament and looked like legit contenders to win it. Going 5-1 in Swiss, key wins over Overflow, Shining Storm. Only losses was to Leg and Access Denied, literally the 2nd and 3rd place teams in this tournament. So Hydra Okay, we see you. Play consistently. You guys would be contenders to win low ink. Legit. Overflow definitely improved their stock in this tournament because this was their first time playing in a tournament and they did pretty well to boot. Players on this team come from Novice Clam, Broken Controller Gaming, and Touch. Not Touch Grass guys, please. That was their pickup name. Team name guys, please. TNGP. I know that because they tweeted about it, and it's good to see teams tweet about, hey, here's our new team, and here's where everybody came from. Here's our previous experience. First tournament as a team going 4-2, getting wins over Blue Hour, the Jelly Squids, and Shiver Me Inklings. The Pirates themselves took an L to Overflow. Don't think, yeah, they did make top cut here, getting knocked out by Access 920, but nicely done, Overflow, for your first tournament. We'll keep an eye on you guys going forward. The rival of Red Sun, of course, is Blue Moon, who went 4-2 in this tournament with wins against Blazing Storm, Ink Bashers, Dog Cat Hype, and took games off of Access Denied in Yoru, a team we'll be talking about in a second. So Blue Moon, I know they've played in low ink before. I didn't look up their results in the most recent low ink they played in, but I've been aware of Blue Moon, but I feel like this is a glow-up result for them. Regardless if it's not, it's a team that's going to have my attention going forward, not just because they have a name that looks the exact opposite of Red Sun, and not because it says not like Blue Hour, the team that won Epsilon bracket in Super Jump and does decently well in Little Squid League and played in this tournament right here. But Blue Moon is becoming their own thing with the wins they got here, getting knocked out by Leg, barely making it into top cut as the 8th seed. We see you, Blue Moon. INKD missed top cut, but this was the LSL team that knocked out Ocean 7, I believe. This was one of the teams that got one of those upsets against the traditional LSL monsters and made some noise in LSL. Ink Bashers, Bamboo Dragons, and House all fell victims to INKD, who went 4-2, just missing the top cut here. Vastly improving for this LSL team. Heaven's Moonlight, wow, probably the biggest glow up from this tournament here. 4-2 with key wins over House, yes, that is that team's name, Inkvaders, Bravo, and getting 1-2 losses. Both of their losses were 1-2 results, so they at least took games off of everybody that straight up beat them. Heaven's Moonlight didn't make top cut, but still, this is a team that's kind of flirting with that gamma bracket role, doing good enough here, a good enough record, opponent win percentage is not breaking into their favor. Heaven's Moonlight, another team trending into the right direction. Let's talk about Yoru for a minute. YORU going 4-2 in this tournament, beating Blue Moon, Shining Storm, BLT. It's significant that they're doing that good because they were a 3-3 team back in June, and this used to be Rainbow Blossom that used to play in low ink as well. So it's good to see these guys play in their first tournament since June, and here's what they almost did, because this match was on stream. They played in round 1 of Top Cut against Sirius and took them to a game 3, and doggone almost near knocked them out in that game 3. If it wasn't for Sirius, the Nautilus player, I want to say Soup, unless I'm wrong, just got a quad to close out that game and flexed all over them. But Yoru so close to knocking out the team that seemed so dominant throughout this whole tournament, Sirius. So hats off to Yoru. You tied for 5th, but had a good showing in that 5th place tie. For the two teams that made grand finals here, Leg and Sirius. Leg has a strong cult following. Whenever we put Leg on in low ink, chat gets excited. I think just because of the name Leg. But it helps that Leg is actually really good at the video game as well. They're a traditional alpha bracket team. They looked really strong here. I don't know who was the team that beat Leg, because they finished number 1 in their after the Swiss stage. They went 5-1, and the team that beat Leg just so happens to be Sirius, who beat them 2-1 back in the group stage, even though Sirius took a loss earlier. But they played again in Top Cut, and it was a 3-0 win for Sirius. That doesn't mean that leg wasn't competitive, because they were some close sets. It's just Sirius finally was able to get over the hump. And what hump would that be for Sirius? Well, if you recall, this is the team that made grand finals of Alpha Bracket in Low Inc 2 months in a row and failed to get the dub 2 months in a row. DC's kept them out against the Deep Fried Octolings. And the counter picks, they couldn't find the right counter pick against Hero Fan Club the next month. And they didn't play in August. I don't think they had enough players. But the question for Sirius was going into this tournament, because I knew they're one of these teams that's got those smaller rosters, like only 4 players on it. They lost Mars, their junior player. They left the team, I'm assuming on good terms. I didn't look into it too much. But I knew they were recruiting, and it looks like the player that took Mars's place was Bandy, or Bandai, Bandi, formerly of Booyah X. And they've come into that role and have played it very well. But the question was, is this just like a rebuild or a reload kind of situation? I think we got their answer. They just reloaded. They're just as good as they've always been, maybe even better. And the question was, winning this tournament, is that going to be what they need to finally win Low Inc? Is this going to be what gets them over that hump of just making it to grand finals, and then something just happens that mentally just kind of beats them back and keeps them from winning this tournament? Well, now it does a lot. It does so much for your psyche, for your mentality, when you have a tournament win under your belt. You know what it feels like to win. You know what it feels like to get dubs in pressure situations. You know how to go into a scenario where a lot is on the line and escape it dominantly with a win. And that might be what pushes Sirius over the edge to win Low Inc. Not the roster that they have, but just the additional mental fortitude that they've kind of grown from getting into this tournament. So Sirius picking up a nice win here. Good results for a lot of teams all around. Another fantastic weekend for Deep Sea Solutions in the Minnow Cup sector. Oh, and finally, we have reached the end of episode 76 here on the Popcast. Thank you for watching. If you would like to be a part of the Popcast in any way, as I try to get my voice back here, make sure to reach out to me at my socials below. Twitter at Mr_Popgun, Discord Popgun, #5882, YouTube at 25Popgun, Twitch at Popgun25. Thank you for making it all the way through to this. If you're watching this on YouTube and you watched the entire hour and 25 minutes of this, you are crazy. This guy also does some podcasty stuff, I believe on Fridays. So let's go raid Negus. That was, please try again in a minute. How long is a minute? Come on, I really want to raid. Don't be like this. Okay. This is one of the awkward ways that we're going to end this show. I'll try one more time, and if that doesn't work, then we'll just not do it. There's a problem. Please try again in a minute. It's been a minute. I did. All right, fine. We're just not going to raid somebody. I'm not going to sit here and just awkwardly drag this out. YouTube is watching. Go watch NEGES. Just go watch that. Tell them I said hi.